How's it going, YouTube? So, as you guys might have noticed, Square Enix reached out to me with the opportunity to reveal a card from the upcoming set from Nightmares, and I thought I would do it in my normal way. So, if you haven't been on the channel before and you're here just for the spoiler, wait till the end of that timer. I'll show it then. You guys can go ahead and leave, but I would appreciate it if y'all would stick around. And I'm gonna kind of do a little bit of my own content because the card I got, I think, is actually quite playable. So, reveal in 3, 2, 1. The card is Zoo. This is part of our new monster cycle. It is a 2CP multi-playable Category 10 monster, job name Zoo. When a dual character you control is activated due to your summons or abilities, until the end of your turn, Zoo also becomes a forward with 8,000 power. This effect will only trigger once per turn. So I'm not gonna lie, I did not expect to get a card this good. This is a very, very playable card for a lot of reasons. I think that it pairs very naturally with a card like Yuffie. Yuffie is a free source of activations because Zeus has character. You don't need to activate specifically a forward or a backup. And I think that Yuffie makes a really natural partner for this, in part because Yuffie has a very good ability to clear the way, at which point your little multi-playable 2CP 8Ks can kind of march in like a little conga line. And Wind has not had an effect like this before. Let me pull up here, and a little bit of live editing done cheap, as I tend to do. But if you go to the monsters on FF decks, we're going to go look at the Wind monsters. And nothing really matches this niche of a relatively large forward that doesn't activate until you want it to. Not for this cost, anyway. We have the old Zoo from Opus 6, but this is a 4 cost, which just is very different than a 2 cost, especially because when you're playing Yuffies and Bismarcks, you really want this forward to be a pretty cheap addition to the roster. The other one would be from the same cycle as Blue Worm in Opus 15, but Gigantoir, this first effect doesn't do much, and then the forward dies, and kind of what I think you really want from a card that would pair with Yuffie is the same kind of a perpetual value engine as Yuffie. So kind of in the same way that Yuffie is only targetable from the start of your main phase 1 until she attacks, Zoo would only be targetable as a forward from the time Yuffie attacks until the end of your turn. So when they march in like a little conga line, they do their thing, and then they just kind of blink out, which I think is really, really underrated. I think that that's potentially really powerful. As far as where this would go in a deck, I really, really like the idea of playing this in like a mono wind Fat Chocobo list. Because in a mono wind Fat Chocobo list, you don't have as much room taken up by summons, and you're already running Yuffie in that list anyway right now with about 8 copies of her, so you have this very easy way to kind of march in these Zoos for damage as you kind of go through. So, real quick, I'm going to pull up a copy. This is Travis Red Rose Pfeiffer's Mono Wind Yuffie Fat Chocobo list. So I'll switch over to the card view. It's a little nicer to showcase for YouTube content. But essentially, the way this deck works, if you haven't seen it, is you use Fat Chocobo, who has a very interesting deck building cost, which is that if every card in your deck is a wind character, you get to draw a card at the end of your turn. And then you have a second effect where you can tap himself to play a 2-cost backup onto the field. So he ramps you while also drawing you cards. It's an incredibly powerful effect, kind of hindered by the idea that one of Wind's best assets are its summons. You have no access to Azura. You have no access to Chocobo. You're heavily incentivized to play 2 CP backups, which means that you don't want to play cards like Althea or Nordstalin. It's a very powerful card, but one that tends to be kind of, I don't want to say difficult to pilot, but it tends to be overlooked in favor of more Stormy type lists. But you can see we've got just a lot of really powerful payoffs, really powerful 2 CP backups. And a lot of the time what we're going to do is we're going to play the Fat Chocobo, ramp our backups out to about 3, play the Yuffie, and then Yuffie's going to swing in and kind of board wipe every turn, right? If we did that with this Zoo, whenever Yuffie clears the way, all those Zoos get in for points of damage, and again, they're very hard to interact with. I think the only downside to this card is that you don't control the activation as much as I would like. I wish it was like you can make Zoo a forward with 8,000 power once per turn, so that you could choose to ignore it if you didn't want to make Zoo a forward. But I think regardless, I think this is a supremely playable card in the right decks. So, as I tend to do, I love deck building. I took this card and I said, what would I make if I were to make a deck centered around this Zoo? So I took Travis's Mono Yuffie list, or Fat Chocobo Yuffie list, and I kind of built my own. So there's a lot going on here. I think one thing that I also failed to mention, is the new Yuna. Let me think about if there's a good way. There we go, Yuna. This Yuna actually would pair really well with this because this is a 2CP category 10 character with positive effects. Yuna is looking for category 10 characters to get her spin effect. There's also Riku is a very common inclusion in Yuna in Fat Chocobo lists. If you have that, then it makes sense now to run 1 or 2 copies of the EX Search Your Pain. And one thing that's really nice about this is even though this is a wind water card, there is a wind backup that taps for water CP. There's actually multiples you can use for that. So it's not that hard to get this unit into play. So here's what I have for Zoo Yuffie. And you can see we have quite a lot of things. You can maybe bump the file to a 3rd copy by cutting the Nash or the Leafkin. But we have what looks like a really solid, mid-range deck. We have the 9 ways to get to our Fat Chocobo on turn 1. Every card in this deck except for the Aerith exactly is a wind character, so Fat Chocobo will do it. And I really like Aerith in Yuffie list because she represents 2 Yuffie special by herself. Just be lucky with the Fat Chocobo. It's kind of no similar than running Kadaj and Mono Fire with Geomancers, in my opinion. It's unlikely enough to hit that I'm okay with it. And we get to run some really fun text to empower both the new Yuna and our Zoo. So one of which is the starter Barley. It's a 2 CP backup. You can tap him and break him to activate 2 forwards. This will allow you to use your Zoos as blockers while also having another category 10 character. So we have the Barley and the Riku and maybe a Zoo or 2 that Yuna can enter and spin a character of cost 4 or 5 even on entry, which I don't think is even that unlikely to do if you have, Barley, Riku, Yuna, right? Or Barley, Riku, Yuna, Zoo, or Zoo, Riku, Yuna. So yeah, I'll put the deck list down in the description below for you guys to check out. And again, thank you guys so much for watching. If you guys enjoy the content and like how I talk about the game or how I see the game, feel free to check out the other videos I have. I like going through, in the near future, I should have a video about the new starter deck. I talked about the cards in it, but now I have a deck list that I'm satisfied with that I would love to share with you guys. So thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.